All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel. Of course, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC, where the best reviews wrestling, and your three-time YWC channel of the year. Not back here. It is officially, of course, Friday, May the 9th of 2025. So I'm back for my second video of the night. Now, this is a little more proper video, whereas my first was more of a short video where I just kind of vented and stuff with in regards to the Orioles. But I wanted to go ahead and make this video because I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit of wrestling here, talk a little bit of wrestling talk, if you will. And just something I've been thinking about generally for a while. So I'm going to talk real quick about AEW, specifically something that's that I've been thinking about for quite a while, and that is the direction of AEW. More specifically, the direction of the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, which is currently, of course, occupied by Jon Moxley representing the Death Riders. And we've seen this Death Rider storyline play out since the fall of last year, since Jon Moxley took the title from Bryan Danielson at, I forget what pay-per-view it was. It was the one before, I believe it was, not WrestleDance. It was, I can't remember. I can't remember the pay-per-view right off. It was before Full Gear for sure. But it was the pay-per-view they held in October of last year. But anyway, so we've seen Jon Moxley. He's been world champion since, and he's had this run of of course, he's had this reign of terror. The Death Riders have had this reign of terror, so on and so forth. And Jon Moxley has been keeping the AEW World's title in a briefcase or what have you. We have not really seen the AEW World's title since Jon Moxley won it, because he carries it around in a briefcase, usually held by Marina Shafir or by Jon Moxley himself. And so yeah, he's basically taken the AEW World title hostage. And his motivation for this is, well, if you want to be world champion, you have to do your utmost in order to take the title from me, and so on and so forth. And he basically says that nobody in AEW is ready to truly be champion, or, nobody deserves to be champion, and so on and so forth. And he's cut a lot of, cryptic promos and stuff, and the Death Riders in general have really kind of, like I said, been running roughshod over the AEW's roster since the fall of last year, since Moxley became champion. And going forward, there's, of course, been a lot of discussion online, some people voicing their, I guess, disinterest or displeasure in regards to the whole Jon Moxley title reign and the Death Rider storyline in general. And, some of it is well-founded, but some of it is I think it's just people complaining for the sake of complaining. I personally have been enjoying it. Now, could it be better? Sure. But I'm a fan of Jon Moxley, and I like the guys that they got the Death Riders. I think it's a good collection of guys, and I do think that there was rather a direction for the storyline. I just think that it kind of tailed off, and they're basically trying to redirect or try to find a different alternative. Just because I think personally there was I personally think there's a lot that they wanted to do, but they couldn't do, in regards to a certain individual who was rumored to be, the brains or the leader behind the Death Rider. I'll get into that later. But anyway, so looking ahead, there's been a lot of, people who have voiced their displeasure on social media, saying, they need to take the title off of Moxley and so on and so forth. A lot of people thought it was going to be Swerve Strickland back at AEW's last pay-per-view, what was it, Dynasty? Dynasty back in I think at the beginning of April, I'm sorry, about a month or so ago. And of course, Jon Moxley retains, and you had that whole thing, and there are some people who voiced their displeasure about that, and this, that, and the third. And looking ahead, I do believe that at some point, AEW is just for me, it's like I look at it, I think they're waiting. AEW, Tony Khan is they're waiting for the right moment for that one individual, that one person, to be the one to take that title off of Jon Moxley. It needs to be it needs to be a big, they're waiting for the right moment. They're waiting for the right moment, and they're waiting for the right person. Well, I personally believe, and this is just me kind of, you could call it fantasy booking, you call it whatever, but I personally believe that there's a specific moment that they are waiting for in order to take that title off of Jon Moxley, and there's a specific individual who I think they're going to have be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley. And that individual and that person will be Will Ospreay. Now, Will Ospreay, it's no secret, Will Ospreay is one of the best guys, one of the best wrestlers, and not just AEW, but in all of professional wrestling. He has been for a long time. That's why he's been so highly touted and scouted by multiple companies. WWE expressed interest in him, and he ended up choosing AEW. And good on him. And he's been with AEW since early last year. And I even said when he first arrived in AEW, I said that man is destined for greatness. He's destined to be a world champion because Tony Khan wants to put the title on. I said it was only a matter of time before Will Ospreay becomes AEW World Champion. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because he is going to be a champion. You know how there was that story that Tony Khan, he selects in advance, like the guys that he wants to hold the world's title, to hold the AEW World's title. Like he has a short list of wrestlers that he wants, that he basically plans, to hold the world title or have a run with the AEW World's title. Will Ospreay is for sure on that list. No doubt in my mind. Will Ospreay is on that list. I'm sure Okada's on that list. Maybe even, Kyle Fletcher's on that list. Maybe even Darby Allin's on that list. There might be a couple of guys who have already been world champion who might be on that list. Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland, so on and so forth. The list, names go on. MJF, another one. But Will Ospreay, to me, ever since he came to AEW early last year, it was destined that he at some point was going to become the AEW World Champion. And I think if you're AEW, if you're Tony Khan, and we've seen what Will Ospreay can do in AEW. We've seen it for like the better part of a year now, for well over a year. We've seen the matches, we've seen the things this guy can do in the ring. And he is very much massively over with the crowd. He was when he first came, and he still to this point is very much over with the crowd. Even now, a year and a half or so into his tenure, and he's kind of been like, he's taken some L's, he's taken some losses, he's put guys over. In the past, he put Ricochet over in the Continental Classic. He put Kyle Fletcher over in their match at Full Gear. Hell, he even put Darby Allin over. He's taken some singles losses, he's taken some L's, but he's still, at this point, as over as anybody in that company. And it's incredible. Like, he's a special kind of athlete to where he's a top-tier wrestler, but he's also got the charisma to go with it. You listen to his promos, you listen to the things that he says, you listen to his poise and his mannerisms and the way he delivers in terms of promos. He's a very underrated mic worker. So on top of being a top-tier wrestler, he's got that charisma and that he's got that aura about him. He's got that buzz about him that makes you want to pay attention to him. That makes you want to make him the top guy. And that's very rare in this day and age when it comes to pro wrestling. For a guy to be this good, this talented, and still be this over at this point, even despite the losses that he's taken, despite, him putting over other guys in the moment, that's a rare thing to see. And I think if you're AEW, if you're Tony Khan, you got to strike while the iron is hot. And I think they will. In a couple weeks, we have AEW's next pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, 2025. It will take place in Arizona on May 25th, which is a couple weeks from now. And on that show, it's going to be the Owen Hart Foundation Men's Tournament Finals. It will be Will Ospreay one-on-one versus Hangman Adam Page in the finals. Of course, we've had this Owen Hart Foundation tournament for the men's and women's. We've seen the matches play out on TV the last several weeks. And we now have the finals for the men's side and the women's side. And the finals on the men's side is Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page. And the winner of that match will not only be the Owen Hart tournament will not only win the Owen Hart Foundation Cup, they will also be the number one contender, and they will get a title shot. They will get a match for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship at All In, Texas in July. And going into this match, and this is going to be like on paper, and we've seen segments between the two. We saw a segment between them face-to-face. They had the face-off at the beginning of Dynamite this past Wednesday. And you saw the chemistry. Like, the chemistry is there. The chemistry is there, and I'm sure that match is going to be badass. First time ever, Hangman Adam Page, Will Ospreay, that match is going to be fucking badass. You can bet your bottom dollar that match is going to be a top-tier fucking match of the year candidate. I'm calling it right now. Match of the year. Any match featuring Will Ospreay is going to be a match of the year candidate. Like, it's just got, like, the guy's that good. Hangman Adam Page is good in his own right, and I'm sure he's going to contribute a great deal in this match too. But that's the level of talent that Will Ospreay is. And looking at it on paper, Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page. The winner of this match gets a guaranteed title shot at All in Texas to face Jon Moxley, to get a chance at, to get an opportunity to take that title from Jon Moxley at All In at AEW's. You might as well say AEW's biggest event, which they're pretty much touting it as. All In, that Texas stadium, the Ranger Stadium in Arlington or whatever. It's going to be that's going to be a badass event, come July. And my thing is, you could make a case for either guy winning, but for me personally, I think it's the right move to have Will Ospreay go over that match. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say Will Ospreay needs to win that match. Will Ospreay should win that match, and I think ultimately Will Ospreay will win that match. And he will win the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament. He will become the number one contender. He will go on to All in Texas in July. He will be basically representing AEW, the hopes and the dreams and wishes of AEW, and he will go into All In. He will go into All In Texas versus Jon Moxley for the AEW World Heavyweight title, and he should be the guy. Will Ospreay should be the guy to dethrone Jon Moxley and take the AEW World Heavyweight Championship from Jon Moxley. I'm calling it right now. Will Ospreay will win. He will beat Hangman Adam Page. He will win the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament. He will go on to All in Texas, and he will beat Jon Moxley and become the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. And this is coming from a Jon Moxley fan. Now, I'm pretty damn big on Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley is one of my favorite wrestlers in AEW. He's for sure top 3. I've stated in the past, Jon Moxley is one of my dudes. He's one of my favorite guys in AEW today. And I personally don't mind him being champion at all. Because he is one of the top guys in that company. He's the guy. He's been the guy since he first came there. Since he first joined AEW back in 2019 at their inception. At their first Double or Nothing show 6 years ago. And he has been the ace. You hear the commentators calling Jon Moxley the ace of AEW. He has been their ace. And he is a very important figure in that company, and he will continue to be. And personally, I'm digging his title reign. I'm digging what they're doing. People have their complaints or whatever, but I'm a Jon Moxley fan. I like seeing Jon Moxley champion. That being said, I think it's the right decision. I think his title reign has run its course, and I think that Will Ospreay should be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley and be the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I've seen some discussion online, and there's been it's seemingly in recent months, weeks, what have you, there's been a lot of clamor. There's a lot of people getting behind Hangman Adam Page, and rightfully so. He's got this whole redemption storyline. He's starting to kind of turn a little bit. They're starting to kind of, you see these segments and these shows that he's been having the last few weeks, the last few months, where he's kind of turning, he's got a little bit of a babyface turn going, not full on yet. He's kind of like in that tweener role where some weeks you think he's a heel, some weeks you think he's a babyface. He's got this whole thing with Swerve Strickland going where they're like teasing like a reconciliation thing between them where, Swerve is, apologizing, for what he did for Hangman and vice versa. And you kind of see them, they're planting the seeds there. You kind of got that whole thing going on. People are starting to get behind Hangman Page. There's a lot of people who have been, Hangman Page fans, and rightfully so. The dude's been, he's been in AEW since the beginning. Former AEW World Champion. He's been another guy like Jon Moxley who's been kind of the anchor, low key has been the anchor of AEW. One of the top guys in AEW, and a lot of people are thinking that Hangman Page should be the one to go on and face Jon Moxley and beat Jon Moxley. I personally. Nothing against Hangman. I will have no complaints about Hangman Adam Page becoming AEW World Champion again. I personally think his first title reign was short-lived. And I think, he didn't quite get the full title reign that he deserved. Of course, that was the year that Punk was there, and Punk ended up being the guy to take the title from him. And we saw how that played out. But yeah, like I got no complaints about Hangman Page possibly being the guy. But I just think at this point, at this stage in the game, with just the grand scope of things, just looking at the grand scale of things right now in AEW, I think it should be Will Ospreay. We've seen Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley matches before. They faced each other before. They had that Texas Death match a couple years ago. That was a badass fucking match, by the way. We've seen these guys face each other before numerous times. And not to say that I wouldn't be interested in seeing them again. I'm sure we'll see them again at some point down the line. But I just think now would be the time for Will Ospreay to be that man. For Will Ospreay to get that shot. He had a shot last year. A lot of people thought Will Ospreay would win the title last year. If you remember, I think it was last year at Double or Nothing, or it could have been the pay-per-view before that, where he faced Swerve Strickland, when Strickland was the champion. And that was a badass match in the main event of that show, and Swerve Strickland ended up retaining. And, a lot of people were saying, Will Ospreay was going to take the title at All In, because All In was in Wembley Stadium last year. And, of course, obviously that's Will Ospreay's home country, in the UK. But it ended up not happening. And I just feel like now is the time. Now is the time AEW should strike while the iron's hot. They should go with the hot acts. And I do think Will Ospreay is the hot act. I think he's as over, like I said, he's as over as anybody. Even a year and a half in. And he's still this good. And he's still this over. You can't miss out on an opportunity like that. And I just think it's the right call. I think it's the right call. With all due respect to Hangman Adam Page, I'm sure, there are people clamoring for him. I've seen, people saying, on social media, Blue Sky and other sites, they want to see Hangman as champion again. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind, like I said, I wouldn't mind that at all. But I just think it's not quite the time for Hangman to challenge for the title again right now. I think he's got too much going on with this whole Swerve Strickland thing. I think they got to hash that out. I think they got to, let that play out. And also you add in, the whole thing with the Elite, the Young Bucks. You got the Young Bucks, talking, chattering with Hangman Page. And I personally think, low-key, this might be a little bit of a spoiler here, I personally think the Young Bucks are going to, in a way, cost Hangman Page the match, in the Owen Hart Cup finals at Double or Nothing. It may not happen, but I just get that feeling. Just so with all this stuff going on with Swerve Strickland and the Bucks and that whole thing, it was the Bucks who cost Swerve Strickland the match against Jon Moxley back at Dynasty, back in the beginning of April. But I just get the feeling that Hangman's got this thing with Swerve and with the Bucks, which I think ultimately is going to lead to Swerve and Hangman teaming up against the Bucks, against the Elite. I get the feeling that that's where the direction they're headed. Which, if that does happen, that would be fucking badass, and I think a lot of people are going to be behind that. To see Swerve and Hangman after all after all their history, their checkered past, the back and forths, the feuds that they've had, if Hangman at one point, invading Swerve, well, not Swerve, I meant to say Swerve invading Hangman's home. And then Hangman came back a year later, and when he was the bad guy, and he fucking burned down that infamous segment where he burned down Swerve's childhood home or whatever. And it's just, the back and forth between Swerve and Hangman has been so great, and now they're teasing like the two of them kind of reconciliating and making amends and coming together basically. And I think that's going to happen at some point. I think that's where the direction they're going with Hangman, and so I think that's going to culminate at some point this year. And basically, with Hangman being tied up with that, I personally think that the AEW World's title should be pursued by Will Ospreay. And I think Will Ospreay should be the guy, like I said, to win that finals match against Hangman Page. It's going to be a badass match. It's going to be a badass match, like I said. I can't wait to see it personally. They're already teasing it. I can't wait to see it. But I think Will Ospreay should be the one to win that match, become the Owen Hart Foundation, win the Owen Hart Foundation. I can't fucking talk. Sorry. To be the man to win that match, win the Owen Hart Cup, go on to Double or Nothing, go on to All in Texas, face Jon Moxley for the AEW World's title, and be the man to dethrone Jon Moxley. Be the man to save AEW, if you will, and be the man to become the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion and be the new face of AEW going into the future. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. That's what I'm predicting is going to happen. And it's going to be great. You put that title on you put that AEW World title on Will Ospreay. You cannot tell me that people are not going to fucking get behind that. You cannot tell me. After all this time of people begging and pleading, dude, you got to take the title off of Moxley. You got to take the title off of Moxley, which I think that's part of AEW's plan too, because people have been asking for it and asking for it, and they keep not giving it to them. So basically, what they're building up hype, they're building up anticipation, because they're waiting for, like I said before, they're waiting for that one moment, and they're waiting for the one person to be the guy to take the title. It's got to be something special. It's got to be a big deal. It's got to be a big event, and it's got to be it's got to be one special, unique individual to be the one to do it. And I think it's going to be Will Ospreay, and I think it's going to be at All in Texas, because that's going to be a big ass event. I can guarantee you. With all due respect to Hangman Page, with all due respect to Darby Allin, because I heard a lot of people say, Darby Allin should be the one to take the title from Jon Moxley, and this, that, and the third. People saying, they're waiting for Darby Allin to come back. Darby Allin's climbing Mount Everest right now. And I wouldn't be opposed to Darby Allin being world champion at some point either. But it's just, he's doing what he's doing. I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. So I think it's going to be Will Ospreay. I think Will Ospreay should be the one to dethrone Jon Moxley, and Will Ospreay should be the next AEW World Champion and be the face of the company going into the future. That is the right call. That is the right call. That is what's best for business. And that is what's best for AEW. I think going forward, it should be Will Ospreay being the man to beat Jon Moxley and take that title. And that's coming from a Jon Moxley fan. So that's just what I think. And this is kind of, I've been stewing on this for a while. So if this video ran kind of long, it's already over 20 minutes, but I had a lot to get out here. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. So I pretty much just told you more or less my prediction for their match for the Owen Hart Cup for the Owen Hart Foundation Cup men's final. I think Will Ospreay is going to beat Hangman Page. I think that is the right move, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out from here. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for this video. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment. Give me your thoughts on anything I talked about here. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, man, if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support you get. And with that being said, it's pretty much going to do it for this video, man. So thank you for watching. More content to come for sure. But that's going to be it for me for now. So thank you for watching once more. Until next time, this has been the Wrestling Otaku, and I'll see you guys later. Till the next video, I'm out. Peace.